This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
Hello and welcome to this week's Niall or Nine podcast. It's Niall here doing a solo run. On this episode, I'm going to be having a chat with Dublin's first night mayor. That is the first nighttime economy advisor for Dublin City, Ray O'Donoghue. So night mayor is the term that people have been using to kind of denote what it is. In Dublin, we are calling it the nighttime economy advisor. What is the nighttime economy advisor? Well, the idea of a night mayor, night czar, or nighttime economy advisor is one that has taken hold in capital cities around the world. Most notably London, Manchester, and Bristol in the UK, and after cities like Amsterdam and Paris also instigated and adopted the idea. So what is a night mayor? What is a nighttime economy advisor? My perception of what it entails is someone who advocates and advises local city council policy and decision making and what is required in order to make the city more livable at night. This is generally considered the time from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it also includes a lot of what people like myself and yourself who are interested in music and gigs and clubs are interested in. It's about the culture. It's about making the nighttime economy more culturally rich, safer, to be the glue between various communities like venue owners, promoters, nighttime economy workers, and those who make the decisions around how the city is run at nighttime, who may not necessarily have the on-the-ground experience of going out late at night, or politicians are not out at clubs often. So they're not making those decisions. They're maybe not informed to make those decisions. Somebody like the nighttime economy advisor can be there to help kind of translate what is going on in the city, what the city might need in terms of culture, safety, all of these different topics. But you're not going to take my word for it. We're going to talk to Dublin's first nighttime economy advisor, Ray O'Donoghue. Ray was appointed in April as a nighttime economy advisor for Dublin City by Dublin City Council. He was previously known for his work in music events. He is known for running the Sea Sessions Festival. So the role of nighttime economy advisor was something that came up as part of the 2021 Nighttime Economy Task Force recommendations, which put plans in motion for nighttime economy advisors in places like Dublin, Cork, Limerick, Galway, Kilkenny, Drogheda, Sligo, Buncran and Longford. So the Dublin City nighttime economy advisor is one of the last ones, I think, to come in terms of the big cities. Cork has one for a while. And so Ray is now kind of starting to see the first fruits of Ray's work as the nighttime economy advisor. Last week, Dublin City Council shared its nighttime economy strategy, a comprehensive plan designed to cultivate a thriving nighttime culture in our city, spearheaded by Ray O'Donoghue and supported by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sports and Media. So rather than read a very dry report, although I did do 5 takeaways you can see on Niall or Nine from the nighttime economy strategy, showing you the kind of main points from it. Let's talk to Dublin's new nightlife economy advisor directly to see what plans he has for the city and what he can actually do. And let's chat to Ray O'Donoghue. Ray O'Donoghue, how are you?
Hi Niall, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Congratulations on your new role as the nighttime economy advisor for Dublin City. Let's start there.
Relatively new. I'm still getting away with that new moniker, but it's just 6 months into the role now. But I guess the first little while was just finding my feet and in a new environment, a very new environment, as you know.
Yeah, well, why don't we start that? Tell us about your background, first of all, before you got into this role.
Okay, well, I'll try and keep it short, but basically, since I left school, I've been involved in entertainment in some shape or form, whether I started off in bands and a little brief stint as an actor that didn't go great, really, but it was okay for a while. That's good. So we're going back 30 years or so. Then the kind of mid-90s, I decided that DJing I was into DJing, collecting records and so on. And then I started DJing in great clubs, the Kitchen and Chocolate Bar every Sunday night, and all these great clubs around Rerods, around Dublin and around the country, and even in the abroad, the UK a bit, America, Germany, so on. But anyway, I said I'd try and give you the short version. And then around the late 90s became, I guess, I was looking at a lot of promoters bringing people over from various parts, and I said I'll give that a spin myself. So I started promoting nights with various people over the years then, and that led into festivals. And I guess alongside still promoting various gigs around, I've been involved in festivals for the last 20, it's actually 25 years, would you believe? So
okay, yeah.
There you go. So that's I promise it'll be short, but it's never been a normal job. Let's put it that way. And
most people who work in music don't have normal jobs.
No, exactly. There's been plenty of ups and downs, but thankfully the last 10 years or thereabouts have been relatively solid. So
you're relatively solid. So what attracted you to this role, the nighttime economy advisor? Obviously, it's an idea that's kind of spread throughout Europe in the last 10 years, really, in different capital cities. What attracted you to the role?
Somebody had said it to me, and a friend of ours, so you would know who it is as well, said, why did you go for that? And I was like, oh, really? Job with the government, really? And then somebody else said, well, why don't you go for it? If you get it, you can make your mind up if you want it, or you can decide you don't want it. And I said, well, that's a good thing. No harm. A couple of days work, started doing some research on it, started really looking. It's always been something that's interested me. And then I started getting really interested when I was doing doing the background work, and I was looking at Berlin. I've had a kind of club commission for 25 years. Paris have been, 10, 15 years ahead of us. Amsterdam, same. All of these great cities have had people in that position for a long time. And I was like, well, Dublin really needs somebody in that position, and someone with proper experience, as opposed to, coming up the ranks through the civil service or whatnot. So anyway, I went for it. And then a couple of weeks or months later, got offered a gig, and I said, yeah, I'll take it. And it's a challenge, and I'm actually excited and looking forward to it. And that's kind of where we're at now.
So can you describe to people who may not be aware exactly variously it's called the night mayor, the night czar, the nighttime economy advisor is what we're calling it here.
Yeah. The night czar, I don't like, put it that way. The nightmare is fine, even though my friends are calling me nightmare, M-A-R-E. The nighttime economy advisor, people don't really know what the hell you're talking about.
First of all, the nighttime economy is an idea that has developed because in order maybe to give, often it's politicians and people in power, the language to understand the importance of the late night economy, which is to say music that happens from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., right?
It's essentially everything from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's not really, just music or clothes or whatever. It's everything. It's cultural events, it's entertainment, it's hospitality, it's festivals, it's sports, retail. So all of that is included within the realms of the nighttime economy, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Now, obviously, the background I'm coming from, it's more like cultural activity and music and festivals. But thankfully, I've had the experience of dealing with statutory agents, HSE, Gardaí, planning authorities from my experience with the festival. So at least I had a bit of that as well. So, and you remember the pandemic, we had to go through a very stringent process to get grant money, which was horrible for the first year, but then it actually did come through a year later. But there was very stringent kind of controls over that, and you had to go fill in a hell of a lot of forms. So I guess that was part of the process as well. So anyway, sorry, I'm waffling on a bit there. And how this all came about, it was this task force established a few years ago, a nighttime economy task force. And one of the recommendations was put nighttime economy advisors in various cities and towns in Ireland. So they have one in Cork, Galway, Limerick, a few towns spread around the country. And I was actually late to the party because some of them had been in for over a year. But here we are now. We launched the strategy last Tuesday. And it's kind of all open. I was kind of keeping very quiet up until that point, working away in the background. And here we are now, I guess. It's out there in the open.
Well, the strategy is out now. So let's talk a bit about what's in it and also for what comes from there in terms of real world stuff for you, in terms of what your day to day is like. You know, you've got the nighttime economy advisor plan is in there. So that's partly, presumably, something that your objectives it's a 2-year role you're in. So talk to me a bit about in less strategy report language about what you're planning to do.
It's put together by Dublin City Council. Well, Dublin City Council are leading it, and I'm spearheading it, even though essentially I basically wrote it. So it's really 3 pillars. One being cultural activity, which can include various getting involved with festivals that are already happening, getting involved with events that are already happening, trying to coordinate. We did a great Culture Night Late event, as you know. We brought 7 venues in, late night venues that had never been involved in Culture Night before. And that was a great success, and it was picked up, and all of the venues are more than happy and were sending me lovely texts afterwards, say thanks for supporting this, and it was great to be involved in Culture Night. That's an example. And then the other 2 pillars are transport and safety. And without getting into the detail, as I said, without boring people out there, the transport side of things, I don't have much or a huge amount of control. The cultural activity will have more control and can, support stuff and get involved and coordinate events and so on. And transport, and it's more of an advisory role and a coordinator role. But then in saying that, we're speaking to Inroad Éireann, we're speaking to Dublin Bus, speaking to the NTA, trying to find out where we need more late night transport, what we can actually do, what's feasible, and so on. So, and then the final part is safety. And safety, of course, is a huge one. It's a big one that everyone talks about and so on. And we have actual tangible things that we want to do to try and help make Dublin safer or perceived to be. Personally, I think it's a safe city, and people go, "Oh no, you don't." But I genuinely do, and I feel safe walking around. Because I'm watching over my shoulder sometimes in certain places and here, there, or whatever, and at certain times. But I've always had that. It's Dublin. You're in the city centre. You'd be the same if you're in New York. You'd be the same if you're in Barcelona. So you're the same in any city in the world. So
yeah, I think the idea though for like your role as well is kind of being the glue between loads of different people and organizations in which to convey, almost to advocate for, first of all, for the cultural activity, right? And then to advocate as well for like the idea of, it's not rocket science, but increased public transport and more stuff at night. There was, in terms of the safety, there's reference to a kind of safe space, monitored safe space.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about
that. Well, there's 2, that's kind of twofold. One, is we want to introduce a safe area, like a welfare area, something like a medical tent at a festival or something along those lines, except it's not, purely medical. It's more of just that we'd have a medic there. We'll have a couple of security, a couple of welfare staff. And it's an area that we need to get it out there, market it, let people know it's there. It's an area that if you're, vulnerable, just drank too much, you've been in a fight, instead of going to A&E, you might be able to go up here and you get help. And that's essentially and it's something that's worked in the UK, and it's worked very successfully in Cardiff, which is a big student town, and Bath, and I think various other cities in the UK have used something similar, and then in the European cities have used something similar. And we trialed it on Culture Night, actually. We trialed it late on Culture, but Culture Night, actually, everyone was very well behaved, despite what was reported in the media. That was a one-off incident, but everything else was hundreds and hundreds of things went on, and everyone was very well behaved. But we learned some things from that, and we want to potentially bring that in on a more semi-permanent basis. So it'll be late night Friday, Saturday.
So where did you set that up then?
We set that up at the bottom of Camden Street on Wexford Street there. Not won't necessarily be the home for it, and it'd probably be in the shape of a bus or a big, like a kind of a big ambulance or something, but it'd be, won't look like an ambulance. So we don't want people to think, this is the danger zone. It's like literally a safe area where it'll help with deterring crime in the area, and just, it'd be somewhere that people can go, because the guards tell me as well that sometimes they arrest people for being too drunk, and only purely for their own benefit, because they're like, you're actually too, and they don't want to arrest them. They want to go, but I have nowhere else to bring these people because they're just too drunk, and they're put in there, and there's almost a little bit of that. It's like, well, come in here, have a cup of tea, sit down, for example,
it's something we're seeing at the moment in terms of Tengu is a good example, and clubbing, like nighttime monitors, which have been in place since the pandemic. In the club Yamamori Tengu, where if rather than lead with a security led approach necessarily, it's like somebody going, "Are you all right? Do you need a hand? Do you need a glass of water? Are you all right? Is that person bothering you?" Those kind of ideas. It's very very
that's the kind of principle behind it, And the similar thing with we're looking at potential safe transport waiting zones for the late night bus. And it was great that Dublin Bus introduced the security on their late buses, and just something that was welcome. And I think people will feel a little bit more secure to say, well, at least there is, it's not as unsafe as I thought it might be. And something like a transport waiting area where there's CCTV, there's lights, there may be like a button where if you're in trouble or something, you can hit that button and it goes into a central area. These aren't all ideas that I've just come up with overnight or anything. These are ideas that have been trialed and tested throughout the world, so they're not necessarily, but they are tried and tested. And it's something that Dublin needs and something that Dublin has an appetite for. So there's examples. There's loads of other bits. There's HSE stuff like harm reduction thing. There's training, of course, women's safety training, vulnerability training, anti-discrimination training. There's all various things. I'm only giving you a sample of stuff we're working on in the background,
So in terms of then Dublin City itself and its nightlife and its cultural activity, there has been talk obviously of licensing reform, which has been dragging its heels for quite a while now. It doesn't look like it's going to come in. In your role, that's not something that probably you're more of a soft power role in that terms of, like, you can advocate and talk about these things, but generally,
I can advocate and I can coordinate people to an extent, and I have a certain amount of funding that I can help with events and help with initiatives and projects. But as I said to you, I'd have more control over the cultural activity, but not so much over safety and transport, but can advocate.
So what do you think is lacking at the moment in terms of Dublin nightlife?
And the licence law, just to go back on that point, that's with the Department of Justice. And we know that was promised to come in summer 23, and it's been kicked down the road again. And look, in my opinion, without a shadow of a doubt, I think the choice should be there. It's kind of ridiculous that we're a European capital and we're the only one that doesn't have that late night option. I'm not saying they're going to open it up and there's going to be 50 places open at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to happen. No. But there will be a handful, and there will be people who will be market driven. If they feel they can operate and they feel they can open and create a successful business that opens late into the night, fair play to them. And then it leads into the staggered hours and stuff. When we had it before, we'd staggered hours back at, I remember it myself when I was a DJ. You could be playing in Spirit or something till 4 or 5 in the morning because of the theatre license. And not everyone was pushed out onto the streets at the same time. And that's creating antisocial behaviour, and that's creating safety issues and so on, and lack of transport. So it's not rocket science, it's like... Yeah,
a lot of what we're talking about is common sense stuff, and it's but it hasn't been implemented, It
hasn't been implemented. And look, I speak to Sunil and he's doing a great campaign, and I would support what he's doing, but, it's not my place to shout about it, because it's with the Department of Justice. And I do think it will eventually come in. I think they will see common sense and go, oh, there's a huge demand for this. I mean, you look at the stats even with under 35s, I think it's something like, well, I actually have the facts. It's 85% of under 35s think it's a good idea. And then 80% of under 50s. So think that, that's a good idea. So, that the people kind of want it. They want that option. And, I think we're seeing that there's a cultural shift. It's not all about, binge drinking and drinking till all that. It's people want to have, diversity of activity. They don't want to just go pub, get drunk, go home, fall into taxi. They want to go out and go, oh, well, maybe I will go to a late night art gallery. Or maybe I will go to that club and see that DJ that's coming over from Berlin. Maybe I will go to that event that's happening out on the street and it's free. That's the kind of vision I have for Dublin. And,
for me, it's about choice a lot of the time, right? When it comes down to is like, you have to have the ability to offer that choice in the first place. In terms of the licensing, obviously, we discussed it loads here before, but it's an archaic system. That's why it needs updating, because it's the way that it works needs to be updated so that people can access and change and have adaptable different licenses that work for different spaces and all that kind of stuff. So everything isn't tied to alcohol necessarily, etc. And that's where a lot of the time this conversation ends up going to when we talk about licensing, which is like, often what you're talking about there is like the safety of a city, the things that need to be like, that should just be there in the nighttime to be able to encourage people to feel safe, to encourage people to feel like they can walk around the city. Like these kind of things are long overdue, but the licensing stuff is completely separated as well. It's in terms of, but I think from a cultural perspective, that could have a really positive effect. So talk to me about what you're doing. You've done the Nocturnal Beats music trail stuff as part of the culture night thing. So that's kind of bringing people together. So what else are you looking at? Where do you think your time is best spent?
Well, for example, we're looking at a festival. Won't even go into the detail of it, but I've had another meeting about it today. A couple of hours of meetings actually about it earlier today. That's going to be happening pretty quick. So we're hoping to announce that in 2 weeks' time. But that's kind of exciting. That's something else that's happening, something I have direct support and control over. I'm also supporting the likes of Dublin by Night Festival, which is happening November the 1st and 2nd, which I think is a great initiative. It happens in Drury Street and South William Street on one night, and it happens around Capel Street the other night. And there's kind of a lot of different things going on with that. And it's definitely very much that's being supported by right across the board by Dublin City Council, myself and the department, Fáilte Ireland. So it's a culture night, I think, is a brilliant initiative. I love it. I thought it was great. It was like, so I was everywhere. I was from the amphitheatre in Wood Quay up to Capel Street, up to Meeting House Square, to Moore Street, and then in all those venues as well, which were everywhere across from Smithfield to Tengu, Dublin One, Pygmalion, Index, all these places. And more to that, more coordinating venues together. And then all of these other initiatives, as we said, the safe bus, the safe area. And
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
So there's plenty going on. But kind of I have the support of some of the guys in the economic development section and the city coordination team. So we're working on other bits to, the likes of lighting in the city and maybe try and pilot a street where we light up that street. And, I know you get into sustainability issue and so on, but not with, LED lighting and so on. This winter, the Winter Lights Festival, which is a Dublin City Council initiative. I'll be supporting that. Bram Stoker Festival is at the end of the month. So, like, there genuinely is a lot going on in the city. And, you know, we want to get people off their couches, stop watching Netflix, get into the city, come in, enjoy it.
What are you hearing from the industry, the people who are working in the nightlife economy so far? What do they talk to you about?
I think they're I mean, everyone has a few gripes, and then some people are very supportive. And I think they've been a lot of the people I'm speaking to. I've met so many various stakeholders. It's my favorite word, but anyway, I have met so many people from right across the board now that I wouldn't have necessarily spoken to before. And that's everyone from the guards to the vintners to the publicans to the nightclub owners and nightclub DJs to the restaurants to Fáilte Ireland, like right across the board, and individual meetings. And we had a forum with 25 of them, and they supported that strategy actually and gave some feedback. So that's very important, is a lot of consultation with them and getting feedback from them, because they're the ones that will ultimately drive the strategy and will make the city better and safer and more vibrant and so on. And you know, what are the barriers to going out in Dublin? It's too expensive. Yeah, it's too expensive. If you know, we all know, you can pay €10 a pint. We all know that, like, it's old news. But you can also go somewhere and pay €5 or €6 a pint. You genuinely can, and I'll prove to that that's a point. You can go out, like I went out with my good lady wife. I know I was talking about this last week. We went into Hugh Lane Gallery, late night opening. They're doing that every Thursday till 8 o'clock or even later. And it's free. And there's stuff going on. There was a DJ in the time we went. There was music outside. There was like a painting thing on inside. And we did the tour, and we saw the Francis Bacon studio. And then we went for a meal around the corner in Parnell Street. Lovely little Vietnamese place there. And just literally had a night out for less than €50. So, I mean, you know, there is options there. And then we want to give more options. So people go, I can go to the Woodkey Amphitheatre and see a free event, and then go and have a meal in a reasonable place in Capel Street or whatever it might be. And then, of course, I don't feel safe in Dublin. It used to only be 20% before COVID. Now it's upwards of 50%. But we want to try and get that number back down and give people a reason to feel safe at night. And then it's difficult for me to get home at night. So these are the things that are driving this strategy. You know, these are the things that are the barriers. But so we need to fix those. And as we've spoken about it, without getting into detail again, the transport. So advocating for that, speaking to the various transport agencies, speaking to the government departments, and saying you need to be proactive. There's no point in us coming out with a strategy and going, let's do this, that, and the other, and then. They're not supporting it. I think they will support it. And anything like this, any of this positive PR and communication with media on a relatively positive level, I think is important and brings it to the forefront, you know?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, in my estimation, a lot of what your role is to maybe remind people of the importance of all of these things, and as well as, you know, encourage them to visit the city again and all that stuff, but also to say, look, there's a huge amount of stuff already happening. You briefly mentioned it before, but like, you worked on C Sessions festivals, so. Yeah. What other stuff in that set you up, like the work that you've done for C Sessions and working as a festival promoter, really helps you in this role?
I think the fact that as I went through it, I've already given you the background because it had a little bit of experience with, you know, I acted on the stage as a theatre actor. I was a DJ. I was a musician in bands right up until 2010, you know. And then the festival thing was very much coordinator. I was the festival director, but it would have been a team of hundreds. But that was the team. I was just a coordinator. I was just the kind of figurehead. I wasn't telling people what to do because they had their job. They knew what they were doing. And you have a good team around you. And it's like, I hope in Dublin City Council and with the department and so on, there's a good team. There is good people there. There is people who want to get things done. And I'm only just a coordinator and just spearheading things. I'm not dictating or telling people what to do. They know their job. They know what to do. It's the same with the guards, the same with anyone. It's just trying to maybe advise them. And if they may have questions and say, well, what are we supposed to do here? And that was my job at Caesar, to be like troubleshooting people just ask me questions. What do we do here? And I'm just making a decision, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think it's similar with this. It's a coordinator. It's like, well, my opinion is we should try this or we should try that, but you're the expert. So, and then with the festival thing, you have to learn a little. I used to do every year, I go, right, I'm going to learn more about fencing. I know nothing about fencing or whatever it was, or security. I'm going to learn more about the ins and outs. And every year I'd have a little project, generators, and nothing about generators. And then by the end of that festival, I'd know loads about security, I'd know loads about generators, I'd know loads about fencing, I'd know whatever. And I think it's a little bit like that it's okay. Well, I don't really know about what the guards do. I don't really know what the vintners, the association do, but I'm learning bits off those experts,
Yeah, and there's a plan then to set up an advisory group as well. Is that
Yeah, very much. Yeah, probably two groups. One would be a steering group, I guess, and that's more people that actually can influence change and will be, as opposed to, and then an advisor group who would be probably a little bit more creative and will come up with ideas, or may not be, the head of the guards, or may not be the head of the vintners or whatever, but they will have a valuable contribution. So, I think it's twofold, the steering group and the advisory group. And it's the same thing again. It's a team. It's like what we said about festival, that you're a team, you're a coordinator of all these experts, and hopefully that's something that we will be, still have to put it together. I have all earmarks, have people penciled, and then and most of them would have been at that launch last week. And I think that was the important thing, was kind of just getting that out there and getting the right people in the room that said, you're the guys that are going to influence that and are going to be able to make this strategy work,
Yeah.
And it seemed to be relatively positive.
And like you said, because your role in the festival is kind of similar to this in a way, because you're like, at the nighttime advisor, touches on all of these things: programming, planning, policy, licensing, commercial waste, almost mental health, harm reduction, safety, economic development, almost. And there are a lot of people that are, already invested in those. But for me, I'm trying to think of why would somebody come to you to chat to? And you see, Carly Heath's a good example in Bristol. We brought her over a couple of years ago when we did actually a culture night event in the fruit and veg market, things like that. Would have been really nice to have somebody like yourself to chat to and help us turn that key a bit quicker. Spending so much money to open up the fruit and veg market of a place that had been kind of lying there doing nothing, where really what I would have preferred to do is use that as a pilot event. I know we've heard the word pilot events a lot these days, but use that as an event that could be learned from. Then people could actually use the following week or the week after or the following year. That never happened again because on Culture Night, and that was a real pity to me, because we opened up that space, and not without its diversity, and a lot of it was the diversity was down to the cultural differences for me between, myself putting on, along with Mike McDermott and a few others, and Mirren as well, O'Sullivan, putting on an event where you're trying to platform club culture, but then you're coming up with, I use the word rave online, and the guards freaked out, for example. And the event was nearly pulled because of that. So you're talking this is what the differences are, the cultural differences. And basically what happened in that regard was 100,000 people saw this promo video I put up on TikTok, my first ever TikTok. And so it all blew up suddenly. And then I was like, well, it's just, to me, I was like, that's just marketing. I'm just marketing it. But the word rave was still, it had a connotation of, this is a free event, people are going to go absolutely mad, and it's we have to trust people. We have to trust people to come down and come to these events. And in the end, I think it was overly policed or secured. And there was too much security on the door. People were checked too much rather than let them come in, and you get to this point where it was great to do the event and to bring people down. But for us, there was a limit on the number of people that were allowed in the door. The security was too stringent, checking everyone's bag. We were talking about families and stuff, and people should have been able to roll in and have a look. But that was a directly result of the worry that people had about the idea that a rave was happening. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, I think what as well, that's part of my job is I actually just kind of a little bit of seeing that and going, okay, well, if I say, rave, then they're going to take it up the wrong way. If I say all ages, then they're going to take it up the wrong way. So I think it's a little bit of that being, and that's where experience I think maybe comes in. And that's I'm not, as you just said, it was something. It was a one-off. It was whatever. So I think just knowing the various parties involved, that you just have to be. What I'm saying, I suppose, is if I pilot something, unless it's a total disaster, it'll be the idea you're piling it with a purpose, with the purpose of this is going to be a continuation of this. And I'm here at least for another year and a half. So, and it could be longer, who knows? And I'm in a pilot scheme as well. So
but that's it. The idea of a pilot scheme is something we've seen so many, and it doesn't happen again. And you're like, it's just used. It's kind of it feels like an empty rhetoric. Then it's like a thing you're saying that'll happen, but we know it's never going to happen again. So because no one's taking any learnings from it. I think ultimately, what happens in these situations when people try and do these things, or you're trying to put on events throughout different venues and stuff like that. If you use a once-off space, things like that. You come up with so many different organizations and people who you have to navigate, and that navigation is very wary for a lot of people.
And the once off, you have to be careful, because unless that's one of the reasons. Say now I know Muireann did stuff as well, Coaching Night Late, and they were great, and she did them at the Meeting House in Cable Street. But I kind of stuck to the tried and tested venues. We made all those venues free, and they normally wouldn't be free. They were. I think it was the Wigwam guys were saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much. It was our best night ever of Culture Night," and so on. And Tengu the same. Yeah. But we used venues, and they curated it. They had the experience of running that event. So it was very little contribution from anyone else apart from the experts who were running it. Yeah. I think sometimes you get into when you're going completely starting from scratch and piloting something and doing it one-off, then it starts becoming so many different people involved. And it's like, the HSE want to know, the guards want to know, the Dublin City Council want to know. So what's going on? What's this? What's that? Oh, you got insurance, you get that. And it's like, oh, where is he doing in the venue? All of that's already there. It's, you don't have to put sound system in. You don't have to put security that wasn't already there on a Friday or Saturday night. So I think it's about, and then, going back to, one of my passions as well with this is to do interesting things in venues that wouldn't have been used for that before. So whether that's comedy in an art gallery or DJs in a museum, stuff like that, bringing people into those spaces that may not bother because for whatever reason. On your doorstep, they should bother. It's free, but if you're putting it on at night, it'll be Thursdays become the late night galleries, the late night museum places to go and just be part of your night or whatever that might be. Screenings in interesting places and stuff like that. I think it's I think you gotta. It's going to be a slow change, It's not going to, the city's not going to change overnight. I'm very enthusiastic now and excited about everything. And I think we have a great city. I really genuinely do. But I just think we need to be a little bit more proud of it, a little bit more, passionate about it. And then we know there's issues, we know there's problems, but let's if we keep, if the narrative stays negative, then it's never going to change. If we can gradually change, if things are gradually happening in the background or happening in the forefront, and the narrative would change slightly, it's just that balance that people go, well, actually, it's not a bad city after all. I wasn't cool. I'm in town every day now, twice a day sometimes, and I wasn't a year ago before I took this role. But now I'm like kind of falling in love with Dublin again. It's like, oh, that's great, and I hope, and I think people, if they started coming in again on a regular basis, they would too, and go, look at how much that city has to offer. You're not going to get that in your local. You're not going to get that in your sitting watching bloody Netflix. So there you go. I'm getting emotional now. No, I really am.
Okay, so we've talked about the strategy stuff. Is there anything long term you want to look at that maybe you couldn't discuss in the chart or strategy planning stuff?
I think I got to be careful of long term from my position, because if it's a pilot,
even if it's
2
something
years,
you can help maybe action down the line that you'd like to
I
see.
think the likes of that, safe zones, safe area, those transport waiting zones, they're kind of long-term projects, lighting in certain areas. Say the likes of, I was over in Sicily, Catania, and paid for by myself, by the way. And I was, there was this great area. It used to be a red light district, and they had changed it into an art district, and it was all these little kind of warren of laneways and kind of back streets. You can imagine if it was just these dark kind of little laneway, you wouldn't feel very safe wandering around. But they converted into this space. They had murals everywhere. They'd like bicycles hanging on the wall that were like art pieces. They'd these great umbrellas in the laneway. It had some amazing, and it was just, it felt safe walking around. It was nice, and I'd love to see more of that in Dublin, where there's interesting spaces and there's more activity going on and this thing. So, it's lit up a bit more, and that's, I think, the long-term kind of vision, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think the other thing, and we've seen it happen in London with Amy LeMay recently. She was there for 8 years as the London night czar or whatever. I think a lot of reading a lot in the last couple of weeks, since she's now finished her role. She stepped down her role. I think a lot of it is about setting expectations, right? So a lot of people thought that the night czar Amy LeMay would be able to enact changes on legislation, where a lot of that is actually about local boroughs and councils who actually have the say on that. But I think, what people who work in the nighttime economy want to probably see from somebody like yourself is some advocacy for understanding where they come from and translating and transferring that to and communicating that to others who maybe aren't aware of that, to the politicians and the people who are who make legislation, who don't spend their evenings in Dublin City, who don't go out clubbing. That's where I think those kind of things where you can help advocate for changes and also just the understanding of what it is and what is happening in the city. Because I think when people get older, often there can be a very dismissive attitude of, oh, well, the people only go drinking, or, there's only trouble happening there. But like, that's something that, and it's not obviously down just to you, that would be ridiculous, but, you can help kind of communicate that the nighttime economy is not just one thing. It's a load of different things. It's everything. It's safety, it's transport, it's all of the things you also can't do anything about, like the cost of living, rentals and stuff, like buildings that landlords own, all those kind of things. But, I'm hoping that this is the start of something where we have a bit more joined up thinking in this city, because I think that's always been lacking. And I think that's something that we need to see more of, whether it's planning, legislation, spaces for cultural events, spaces for cultural venues, governmental support for spaces like that, cultural organizations, more money for music, culture, arts, all the usual things that everyone bangs on about. But I think it's so important, and that is the measure of our city and the places that we like. Everyone always talks about how, Ireland does so well in terms of it, like it punches so above its weight. Yeah, but often it's swimming against the tide and of understanding in its own country. So I think I'm hoping that somebody like yourself can help in your role to help translate that to people who can actually help those things happen,
And look, as I said, there's no silver bullet. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think there is positivity there from the powers that be, and there will be slow change. But everything you said there, I'm all about engagement. Listen, like, this strategy didn't come about just, I popped into my head and went, oh, well, this is to be good. It came from listening. We've done surveys, comprehensive surveys, and it's about from listening to people. What do you want? What do you think is better for the city? And that's going to continue that engagement with all of those relevant interested parties, with the communities, with people on the ground, with people on the street. And I love talking to people about it, saying, well, what do you think's wrong with the city? And they'll have everyone has a varying opinion. Some are negative, some are positive. But that's what's important. It's about constant engagement with people and then constantly, the strategy is a strategy. We put it out there last Tuesday. We've been working on it for a couple of months. But it's malleable. It's going to change as needed. It's not rigid, And I think that's it. I just said, I think I'm excited about it. And I do get excited. And I'm not sticking my head in the sand. And I'm not saying, oh, amazing and everything's great. But I do get excited because I think that there is potential for change, and there is potential for positivity. There's potential for people to come back into the city and feel safe and feel like it's a great city.
All right, great. All right. I appreciate it. You're the nighttime economy advisor for Dublin City, and you've at least 18 months ahead of you working on that role. So best of luck with it. We'll be keeping up on how you're doing. And in the meantime, thanks for speaking to me.
Thanks, Noel. Thanks for that.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Thanks for listening to the 909 podcast. If you like what we do, why not consider supporting us at patreon.com/909.